A space crew rescues a colony, only to discover that alien monsters have possessed all the residents. While in hypersleep, Ellen Ripley and her cat drift aboard the shuttle Narcissus, which is long straight off course. One day, a search team stumbles upon the shuttle, unaware that anyone is aboard. Using welding tools, they break into the ship and scan its interior, eventually finding Ripley in stasis. Some time later, Ripley wakes up in the medical bay of an orbital station, where a nurse examines her. Soon, she is visited by Carter Burke, a representative of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. He informs her that she's been in hypersleep for 57 years and is incredibly lucky the rescue team found the Narcissus and kept her alive. Suddenly, Ripley's cat, brought in by Burke, starts acting strangely, hissing at her before leaping off the bed. Moments later, Ripley begins convulsing uncontrollably. Panicked, she calls for help as the medical team struggles to restrain her. In a horrifying twist, Ripley pulls up her shirt to reveal her abdomen bulging ominously. A monstrous creature is about to burst out. Thankfully, it's just a nightmare. Ripley wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, startled, as a nurse contacts her via video link to ask if she needs any assistance. A few days later, Ripley appears before the Weyland-Yutani board of directors to recount what happened to her and her crew 57 years ago. She explains how a xenomorph, the alien they picked up on LV-426, wiped out her entire team, forcing her to destroy their primary ship, the Nostromo. The executives, however, dismiss her story about the acid-filled, parasitic alien as fiction. They insist that no such creatures have ever been reported and deem Ripley's account absurd. Furious, Ripley tries to warn them of the danger and pleads with them to take her seriously, but they refuse to budge. Frustrated, Ripley suggests they send an expedition to LV-426 to investigate. The company director informs her that the planet has been home to 60 to 70 terraformers and their families for the past 20 years without incident. This revelation horrifies Ripley, but the director assures her that no one has reported any signs of alien life. A month later, Ripley, now stripped of her officer credentials, lives on the orbital station working as a cargo loader operator. One day, Burke and Lieutenant Gorman visit her. They explain that contact with the LV-426 colony has been lost and propose she join a mission to the planet as an advisor alongside a unit of colonial marines. They're unsure what happened but believe Ripley's first-hand knowledge of the xenomorphs could be invaluable if aliens are involved. Still angry at Weyland-Yutani, Ripley refuses. Burke, however, offers her a deal. If she agrees to help, they will reinstate her pilot's license and officer rank. He pitches it as a chance to regain her career, but Ripley coldly responds that she's not interested. Burke leaves his card, asking her to reconsider. That night, plagued by another nightmare, Ripley wakes up in a panic. Realizing she can't escape her past, she decides to confront her fears head-on. Ripley calls Burke to confirm the mission's intentions. Only after he assures her that their objective is to destroy the xenomorphs, not collect specimens for research, does she agree to join the mission. Soon after, Ripley and the colonial marines awaken from hypersleep aboard the Silico. Ripley observes the marines during their downtime and quickly realizes they don't believe in the existence of aliens and don't see any real danger ahead. During a meal, Private Hudson enthusiastically asks Bishop, the android, to demonstrate his famous knife trick. Bishop later sits beside Ripley and, while performing a task, accidentally nicks his finger. White fluid oozes from the cut, and Ripley freezes in horror. She demands to know why no one warned her about having an android on board. Burke brushes it off, seeing no issue, but Ripley's mind flashes back to her last mission, where an android betrayed her crew. Bishop assures her that such incidents only occurred with outdated models. He explains that he's programmed to prioritize human safety and cannot harm anyone. Despite his reassurances, Ripley remains distrustful and demands that Bishop keep his distance. Later, Lieutenant Gorman gathers the Marines for a briefing. As many still don't fully understand the purpose of their mission to LV-426, Ripley steps forward, recounting her harrowing encounter with a facehugger, a parasitic alien that implanted an embryo in one of her crewmates, leading to the deaths of everyone except her. The Marines, however, laugh off her story with crude jokes, refusing to take her seriously. Gorman assigns the team 7 hours to prepare their weapons and equipment before landing. As the group disperses to their tasks, Ripley offers to assist with operating a cargo loader, a massive exoskeleton-like machine, eager to stay busy. With everything ready, Ripley and the Marines board the dropship and depart the Silico, leaving it in orbit. As they approach LV-426, Ripley notices Gorman looking uneasy. She asks about his experience, and he reluctantly admits that, while he's completed 36 simulated drops, this is only his second live mission. The dropship descends toward the colony, flying low over the buildings. The structures appear intact, and the power remains on, but there's no sign of life or activity. After landing, Ripley, Gorman, and Burke move into an armored personnel carrier to oversee the operation remotely, while the Marines spread out to investigate the colony. Inside, they find evidence of a violent struggle: bullet holes in walls, overturned furniture, and destroyed barricades. The Marines activate their motion trackers, but the devices detect no signs of life. Splitting into pairs, they sweep the area room by room. In one hallway, Ripley spots holes etched into the floor and walls, caused by acid. She realizes her fears about the xenomorphs were justified. Still, with no aliens in sight, the Marines begin to relax, believing the danger has passed. Ripley, unconvinced, insists on joining the soldiers to inspect the colony herself, along with Gorman and Burke. The group eventually reaches the medical lab, where they make a horrifying discovery: several containment tubes, each holding a facehugger. Meanwhile, Bishop discovers records in which the colonists described attempts to remove the facehuggers before the embryo implantation, but the victims didn't survive. Suddenly, a motion sensor detects the presence of a living organism in the neighboring block. The crew cautiously makes their way there, and they suddenly spot a black shadow and immediately begin shooting. Then, the soldiers decide to take a closer look at the creature, but instead of an alien, they find a terrified little girl, Rebecca Jordan, nicknamed Newt, hiding in the ventilation shaft. Ripley immediately begins to calm her down, assuring her that no one will hurt her. But when the soldiers try to grab her, the girl runs away. Ripley goes after her and finds her in the trash chute. Newt tries to break free again, but Ripley hugs her and reassures her that everything will be okay. After a while, the squad, along with Newt, stops at the command post. Gorman wants to interrogate the girl to find out what happened to her parents, but she remains silent and wary. Ripley decides to try to talk to the girl herself, calling her very brave and offering her hot chocolate. Little by little, Newt starts to trust Ripley and says her parents are dead. She asks to be let go, but Ripley insists that it's safer for her to stay with the soldiers, who can protect her. However, Newt believes that humans are powerless against the aliens. Meanwhile, Bishop is studying one of the facehuggers with fascination, and Private Hudson is locating the personal transmitters implanted in all the colonists. All the transmitters are found in the processor station on the 3rd level, beneath the main nuclear reactor cooling units. Gorman orders the soldiers to go there and check everything, while he, Burke, and Ripley return to the armored personnel carrier. The team descends further down the sublevels, and communication with the soldiers begins to deteriorate. On the 2nd sublevel, the team discovers that the walls of the corridors are covered with strange cocoons, obviously created by the aliens. Ripley notices that the soldiers are too close to the reactor, and if they start firing their pulse rifles, they will damage the cooling system, causing a thermonuclear explosion. Gorman then orders the soldiers to put away their rifles and grenades and switch to flamethrowers. Reluctantly, everyone hands their magazines over to Sergeant Apone, but Privates Vasquez and Drake decide not to unload their rifles. Reaching the 3rd level, the team is horrified to find even more alien cocoons, with the bodies of the unfortunate colonists inside. Suddenly, they spot one more living woman, who begs to be freed from her suffering. At that moment, a chestburster, an embryo matured by the facehugger, emerges from her body. The Marines burn it with flamethrowers, but that's when the real nightmare begins. The noise wakes up the adult xenomorphs, which had been sleeping in the walls, and they begin to emerge. At first, the team detects movement on their sensors but sees nothing. However, just a few seconds later, the xenomorphs start attacking the soldiers, one by one. Vasquez and Drake open fire with their rifles, but even that doesn't help. Ripley demands that Gorman get the squad out as quickly as possible, but he is so shaken by what's happening that he can't lead the operation. So, Ripley takes control. She jumps into the APC and speeds toward the 3rd level to rescue the surviving soldiers. When the reinforcements arrive, the remaining Marines continue to fight off the aggressive xenomorphs. Vasquez shoots one of the aliens, and a massive amount of acid spills directly onto Drake, killing him instantly. As the team gets into the APC, another xenomorph tries to break into the vehicle, but Corporal Hicks shoots it with a shotgun. Ripley finally drives the APC out of the alien's lair, but another monster tries to sneak in. She slams on the brakes, and it falls to the ground, after which she runs it over and continues driving. During the escape, the APC catches fire, and Gorman loses consciousness after a heavy box falls on his head. Ripley crashes into the locked gates to get as far away as possible, but due to the extensive damage, the APC's transmission fails, and the vehicle comes to a halt. The team catches their breath, and then, using the sensors, they realize Sergeant Apone and Corporal Dietrich are still alive. Everyone starts arguing whether they should go back for them, but Ripley insists it's too late to save them. Vasquez suggests dispersing nerve agent gas and blowing up the xenomorph nest. Hudson, suffering from an acid burn on his arm, just wants to escape as quickly as possible. Ripley proposes to destroy the entire colony with a nuclear bomb. Burke, however, objects, reminding them that the station was built with a massive investment of money. He also argues that the xenomorphs are a valuable and fascinating species that should be studied, not exterminated. The team, siding with Ripley, insists that the aliens are too dangerous, and they can't take that risk, but Burke says he won't allow them to blow up the station. Ripley then tells them that, since Gorman is unconscious, Corporal Hicks is in charge of the operation, and it's up to him to decide what to do with the alien creatures. Hicks agrees with Ripley and orders an evacuation before bombing the colony. The team exits the APC and calls for a shuttle piloted by Corporal Farrow and Private Spunkmeyer. As the pilots prepare to fly to the team's location, Spunkmeyer notices suspicious slime on the hatch but doesn't think much of it. However, it soon becomes clear that a xenomorph has snuck aboard the shuttle, attacking both pilots. Meanwhile, the team watches in hope as the shuttle loses control and crashes into the rocks. The fire destroys most of the group's weapons, and Hudson begins to panic, realizing that they might be stuck on LV-426 forever. Ripley apologizes to Newt for not being able to escape, but the girl says it's not her fault. Newt suggests they return to the colony and hide there, since it's getting dark, and the xenomorphs are especially active at night. The team follows the girl's advice, gathering what's left of their equipment and setting up in the command post. Hicks states that rescuers won't reach them for another 17 days. Hudson, horrified, points out that they might not survive even 17 hours. But Ripley reminds him that Newt managed to survive without weapons and training. After studying the station's detailed map, the team decides to block all the possible paths the xenomorphs could use to infiltrate the command post and fortify the area with barricades. The surviving soldiers get to work, and Newt eagerly helps them. Hicks gives Ripley a wrist sensor that he can use to track her if anything goes wrong. Later, Ripley puts Newt to bed, but the girl doesn't want to sleep due to constant nightmares. She admits that she's very scared, so Ripley places a tracker bracelet on her wrist and promises that she won't leave her. Meanwhile, Bishop continues studying the aliens and discovers that their acid neutralizes when it comes into contact with other acids. However, Ripley wants to learn more about them because soon, new xenomorphs will be born from every colonist. Speculating about the aliens' origins, Ripley wonders, if the xenomorphs come from eggs that implant facehuggers, then who lays these eggs? Ripley asks Bishop to destroy all the samples, but the android says that Burke ordered him to deliver them alive to the lab. Furious, Ripley finds Burke and demands an explanation. He claims that the bioweapons department is willing to pay millions for the samples, but Ripley says she won't let these monsters be brought to Earth. She also reveals that she found the colony's operations manual, which showed that Burke sent the colonists to the planet without warning them about the danger. Burke admits he made a mistake, but Ripley promises he'll face the maximum punishment when they return to Earth. Soon, Bishop informs the team that there's an emergency steam vent happening in one of the reactors, which will soon cause a massive explosion. Ripley suggests shutting down the station, but Bishop says it's impossible due to the extensive damage. Ripley then realizes their only chance of survival is to call for a rescue shuttle from the Silico using remote control. Hudson starts panicking again, reminding them that their transmitter is broken, so it's over for them. Hicks notes that there's another transmitter in the colony, but it's located at the other end of the complex. No one wants to risk it, fearing the xenomorphs, and then Bishop reluctantly volunteers, as he's the only one who knows how to remotely operate the ship. Bishop heads toward the tower while Hudson and Vasquez watch the perimeter. When Ripley and Hicks are left alone, Ripley confesses that she doesn't believe they will be rescued. Hicks suggests they keep fighting and teaches Ripley how to use the pulse rifle and the remaining weapons. Meanwhile, Gorman regains consciousness and tries to apologize for his unprofessional behavior, but Ripley cuts him off and heads toward Newt. She nervously discovers that the bed is empty but then notices that Newt is sleeping underneath it. Ripley, who hasn't slept in almost 24 hours, decides to join the girl. At the same time, Bishop successfully reaches the radio tower and is preparing the second shuttle. After a while, Ripley wakes up and, to her horror, realizes that the live facehuggers have escaped, and her rifle is missing. She wakes up Newt, warning her of the danger, and then a facehugger leaps onto the edge of the bed. Ripley and Newt manage to escape through the other side and flip the bed onto the facehugger. They try to flee from the lab, but discover that the door is locked. Shouting for help doesn't work either, as the room is soundproof. Ripley then tries to signal using the surveillance cameras, but Burke shuts them off while Hicks is distracted talking to Bishop. She then attempts to break the glass, but that doesn't work either. Soon, Ripley comes up with a new idea. She holds a lighter up to the fire alarm sensors, triggering the alarm, which finally gets the team's attention. While the soldiers rush to help, one facehugger attacks Ripley, wrapping its tendrils around her neck, but she manages to hold the monster at her face. At the same time, another facehugger begins hunting Newt, but the brave girl traps it. A few seconds later, the soldiers break the glass with gunfire, and Hudson immediately shoots the facehugger that was after Newt. Hicks, Vasquez, and Gorman rush to Ripley and struggle to pull the monster off her neck, before also destroying it with the pulse rifle. Regaining her composure, Ripley reveals the truth about Burke's true intentions. It turns out that Burke planned to bring the embryos back to Earth in Ripley and Newt's bodies. To eliminate any witnesses, he had also intended to disable the cryogenic chambers of the remaining soldiers. Burke denies all accusations, but the team supports Ripley. Hicks wants to kill the traitor on the spot, but just then, the electricity goes out in the command post. Hudson and Vasquez head out to inspect the complex, and using motion sensors, they detect movement all around the perimeter. The team locks themselves in a room and secures the door, hoping to hide from the xenomorphs, but the aliens keep getting closer. Everyone backs away from the door in fear, but suddenly, they hear a noise coming from the ceiling. Hicks carefully removes the panels to check, and then the soldiers open fire on the alien monsters, and they all fall into a sealed room. Ripley shoots one of the xenomorphs and, along with Newt, runs toward the emergency exit. Suddenly, the door slams shut right in front of them, as Burke takes advantage of the moment to escape. However, he doesn't get far before a monster attacks him. Meanwhile, Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez, and Gorman fight bravely, but unexpectedly, another xenomorph emerges from the floor and drags Hudson away. The rest of the group joins Ripley and Newt, running into the corridor as the aliens try to break down the barricaded door. Newt finds an entrance to a ventilation shaft where she had hidden before the soldiers arrived, and everyone follows her. Vasquez stays at the rear to cover the others, while Hicks contacts Bishop, who claims the ship will arrive in 16 minutes. Vasquez runs out of ammo, and just as this happens, an alien attacks her. She manages to shoot it with her pistol, but she's burned by its acid. Gorman runs back to help Vasquez, but then several aliens break through the ventilation and surround them. Realizing they have no chance, Gorman activates a grenade, blowing himself up along with the xenomorphs. Meanwhile, Ripley, Hicks, and Newt are almost at the exit, but due to the explosion, Newt loses her balance and falls into the sewage system on the lower floor of the complex. Using the signal from Newt's tracker bracelet, Ripley and Hicks quickly find her but can't pull her out because of the grate. Hicks starts cutting through the grate, but the motion sensors detect alien activity. Hicks is almost done removing the grate, but then a xenomorph attacks Newt. As Ripley and Hicks pull off the grate, the girl is nowhere to be found. Ripley is determined to save Newt, and they rush to search for her. They run into an elevator, where they encounter another monster, but Hicks shoots it immediately, suffering acid burns in the process. Ripley helps Hicks walk, and soon they make it outside, where Bishop is waiting for them on the new shuttle. The android informs them that they have 26 minutes until the reactor explodes, but Ripley insists they won't leave without Newt. Fully armed, Ripley descends once again to the third sublevel, into the alien lair, with just 14 minutes left to save the girl. Using Newt's bracelet as a guide, Ripley makes her way through the corridors, firing the flamethrower just in case. The sensors signal that Newt should be very close, but instead of the girl, Ripley only finds her bracelet. Meanwhile, Newt regains consciousness inside a cocoon and watches as a facehugger emerges from an egg. Terrified, she screams, and Ripley immediately finds her and shoots the creature. At that moment, an adult xenomorph appears from around the corner. Ripley deals with it, then helps Newt escape the trap. Just then, the failing systems begin to explode. Ripley, carrying Newt, tries to escape the xenomorph lair but ends up in its heart. Frozen in horror, Ripley looks at thousands of alien eggs, and soon notices the massive queen, who calls for the other xenomorphs to defend the nest. Ripley fires the flamethrower into the air, making it clear she will destroy all the eggs if the queen doesn't let them go. The xenomorphs fall silent, and Ripley and Newt cautiously try to leave the lair. But just then, one of the eggs opens, and Ripley immediately sets the entire nest on fire. She then shoots all the adults and the unhatched creatures, throwing grenades to ensure they have no chance of surviving. There are only 4 minutes left until the reactor explosion. Ripley and Newt hurry to escape the complex, but a surviving xenomorph follows them. They jump into the elevator, and Ripley shoots it with the flamethrower before they head up to the platform where Bishop should be waiting with the shuttle. However, when they exit the elevator, Ripley finds that the shuttle is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, her ammo is running low, and explosions echo throughout the complex. Suddenly, the elevator doors open again, and the Queen emerges. Fortunately, at that moment, Bishop arrives at the platform, and Ripley and Newt manage to climb aboard the shuttle. The ship leaves the planet LV-426 just moments before the nuclear explosion. Soon, the team moves to Silico and prepares to head home. Bishop gives Hicks a tranquilizer and then apologizes to Ripley for scaring her by flying off the platform. Ripley tells him he did a good job and thanks him for his help. But then, from behind, the Queen attacks Bishop, having somehow made it onto the ship. After tearing Bishop in two, the Queen shifts her focus to the others. Ripley distracts the monster, allowing Newt to hide in a hatch and then hides herself behind a door. Unable to reach Ripley, the Queen turns to Newt and tries to drag her out from under the floor. At that moment, Ripley appears behind the door in a power loader exoskeleton, ready to fight the monster. She delivers several blows and then opens the airlock, hoping to eject the Queen into space. Ripley shoves the alien again, but it grabs onto the loader, and they both fall into the chamber together. After escaping the loader, Ripley climbs up, but the Queen grabs her leg. Ripley then opens the outer airlock door, and the Queen is sucked into open space. The strong wind pulls Newt out as well, but fortunately, the still functional upper part of Bishop catches the grate and holds the girl on board. Ripley successfully exits the airlock and closes both doors. Finally, all the survivors are safe. Ripley prepares the injured Hicks and the upper part of Bishop for the flight, after which she and Newt also enter hypersleep and head home. Do you think humanity should attempt to contact alien species? Share your thoughts in the comments below, give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.